What's up, IndyCar fans? David Land here, bringing you another Diecast review. This time we are taking a look at one heck of an obscure diecast. This is a 1/24 scale racing champion Scott Goodyear Valvoline DuraBlend car from the 1996 CART IndyCar World Series, the last official season that CART would be called the IndyCar World Series. Of course, 96 was the year of the split, so CART and the Indy Racing League would be going their separate ways, and the IRL eventually won a court battle to the IndyCar name, though they couldn't use it until the 2003 season. Why am I talking about all this? Well, because you can't mention 1996 in IndyCar without talking about the split. But this car is a really weird one. It's surprising that it got made, because I was actually having a discussion on social media with my pal Steven over on Twitter, and we were talking about how this car only really ran 6 races of the season. It was entered in 7, but Goodyear had a massive crash at Rio de Janeiro, broke his back, and was unable to compete during the season, so this car kind of bounced around to a few other drivers, namely Mike Groff at Nazareth and Fredrick Ekblom at the ill-fated US 500. And then it didn't run until the Canadian races at Vancouver and Toronto, and then the final race it ran was at Laguna Seca for the season finale. Those 3 races were run with Scott Goodyear again. Goodyear only ran this car once before the Rio crash at Homestead, the inaugural race, very first race at the Homestead Miami Speedway, when it was a mini clone of Indianapolis. But the reason I bought this, aside from it being an incredibly obscure diecast and the only way you can get this car in diecast form, but I bought it because this 96 Valvoline scheme is potentially one of my very favorite paint schemes ever across IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's actually an asymmetrical scheme. You'll see in just a second. The blue you see on the side pod here is not the same on the other side of the car. Of course, there was a couple different drivers or different cars that this scheme ran on during the 96 season, namely the lead driver for Walker Racing, which is this car, which was driven by Robby Gordon. Now, you can get that car in several different scales, but this is the only scale that you can get the Scott Goodyear car. There was another car also run at the Indianapolis 500 for Mike Groff, which was car number 60, but that was never made as a diecast, and also Robby Gordon ran an IRL race later on at Las Vegas with the car number 50. That also never got a diecast. So this is the most obscure version of this paint scheme that you can get, especially because the branding on the car is not Valvoline, it's a Valvoline DuraBlend, or semi-synthetic DuraBlend. So this is the box. Of course, this is the Racing Champions diecast. Not a huge fan of these. If you are a longtime viewer of my channel, I do not like these Racing Champions very much because simply they're not accurate. Essentially, this is a 92, 91 bodied IndyCar, a Lola at that. And frankly, it's fairly unacceptable in terms of, I mean, it's a generic car and they were designed to get out quickly. But to me, if you're going to buy an Indy car from this era, go for a Mini Champs or go for a Hot Wheels or go for whatever you can get that's a little bit more detailed, I would say. Especially because these don't hold their value very much. I mean, I probably overpaid for this car because of the fact that it's so rare or so different. But yeah, I wouldn't pay too much for these cars. Not anything pretty much over $20, maybe $30 if you really want the driver and car. You can see how much licensing is here. The one good thing about the Racing Champions is they made a ton of these cars. Just a purple bottom on the box. Very appropriate for 96, by the way, because of who won the Indy 500 that year. But yeah, really nice looking paint scheme. How about that? And I will show you kind of why I'm not a big fan of the Racing Champions once we get this car out of its box. Okay, there is the car out of its box. I want to point out one more thing real quick about the box. Just this. I prefer this CART style IndyCar logo a lot more than the modern logo. Just something I wanted to point out. I think this is a better sports logo than what they currently use. But anyway, let's take a look at the diecast. Again, this is absolutely one of my favorite paint schemes because, of course, you'll notice here, and you can probably see it on this side, here you can see the light blue with the dark blue, and then as we turn the car around, or at least turn it to the front, you're able to see that we've got a bit of a split personality thing going on here. And as we go around to the other side of the car, the left side, or the right side, oh boy, left and right are confusing David already. This is not going well. But you can see the red side pod. I don't know what it is about that, but I just think it looks so good on a race car, this kind of split paint scheme. Let's zoom out just a little bit because I think I was in a little too close. This is 1/24 scale. It's virtually all metal. The only thing that isn't metal are the suspension pieces here, which are kind of fragile. I'm kind of worried about touching them too much, so we're going to try to not to. All right, so let's go around a full 360-degree view to steal from Robby once again. Yeah, again, I mean, looking at it from afar, I think it's passable. But again, the molding is very much a 1991 Lola, and considering that there were 6 years or so development between the mold that they're using here and the car that it's actually trying to represent, unfortunately it really does fall flat when you start looking at it close up in detail, because it's a modern paint scheme, or a modern then paint scheme on a older car. It's just very weird. It's a bit cheap. Of course, these cars were available in not Walmart so much, but from what I understand, definitely Kmart. I definitely remember these in Kmart. Apparently, they were also in Target, and I would imagine they were also in Meijer stores. So you could get these pretty easily. I think they were just about as easy to get as the NASCARs of the period, because I certainly had a big collection of the 1/64 scale Racing Champions Indy cars. In fact, I still do somewhere. Someday I'll have to do a big collection unboxing of all my old Racing Champions, because I had a big grid. Still do, actually. But yeah, this is a really good-looking paint scheme. Certainly, as you can tell, the Walker Racing cars always really look good. You guys may remember, actually, that I've done a Walker Racing car, IndyCar, on this channel before, and it was the Jill DeFerrin from 1998. That was a 1/18 scale. This is a 1/40 or 1/24 fourth scale. So again, yeah, this car did not run a lot of the season. Of course, Scott Goodyear, again, injured at Rio de Janeiro, and that, I think, really screwed up their season, because I think a lot of the sponsorship on this car was actually associated with the fact that Scott Goodyear would be in the car. Stuff like Compaq, which was a computer company. I'm not sure if they're still around or not, and Nortel, which ended up sponsoring him in 1997 for his Indy 500 race with Treadway Racing, where he finished second. Potentially should have been first, but that was another controversy for another day. Obviously, number 15, longtime Walker Racing number. The other number, of course, was 5, which Robby Gordon used. In fact, Walker Racing just recently closed their doors for good. In fact, my pal Diecast Reviews went to their auction and bought our fire suit. But yeah, unfortunate that they're gone. You get some sponsors in there. This is something I wanted to point out, is that you may notice this if you decide to buy these Racing Champions. You may just notice little hairline cracks here on the paint. Unfortunately, I don't think this is very high quality paint, or whatever they used to actually coat it was not very good. This happens on the 1/64 scale, 1/64 cars too. I remember that specifically. The paint will sometimes crack. I think it's from exposure to sunlight. It's only on the side that was kind of sticking out of the box, or in the window of the box. So on this side, it's good, but yeah, unfortunate. This is kind of weird here. These lines here should really come up all the way on top of the nose, and they did on the actual Reynard chassis. But I think on a Lola it doesn't translate as well, because the Lola had much more of a streamlined nose. That's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, LCI. They were on like about every car on the grid there for a couple seasons in IndyCar racing. That was back in the big days of phone companies, or not phone companies, but like phone minute companies or long distance minute companies. This is weird. In the suspension, you get some of these little hairs. I'm not sure what those are or why they're there. They look kind of weird. You have to get in there with scissors and cut them out. Goodyear's, of course, on the car. Here's the rear wing, which is kind of weird because it's just a flat rear wing. Because it's weird because also you can see that it's curved like it should be in the front, but in the back it's just a straight, almost a Hanford device, if you know what that is, from the CART Super Speedway races. Of course, the world famous pop-off valve. In fact, I'm editing a documentary on Tony Stewart's 1996 career, and that comes into play later on. Of course, you've got the old IndyCar logo up here, the IndyCar logo that I think is superior, of course, on the rollover hoop, and Scott Goodyear's name. Of course, again, Goodyear only ran about 4 races in this car during the season. It was at Homestead, Vancouver, Toronto, and then the season ender at Laguna Seca. Mike Groff ran this car at Nazareth, and Fredrick Ekblom ran the car at the US 500. I think Goodyear brought the car home in the top 10 once, and it was at Vancouver, and that was about it. That was the best result it got. But I'm very, very happy to have this car, simply because of the fact that I'm a bit of an IndyCar hipster, if you couldn't tell from some of my diecast reviews or some of my posts on social media. So I do really like to have some of these really obscure cars, and this is certainly one I'm very happy to add to the collection. And hopefully at some point I can track down the Robby Gordon of this. Despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of the Racing Champions, it'd be nice to have this set. And maybe I'll track down the Mini Champs version of Robby Gordon's car as well. That's going to be a little bit more expensive, of course, because Robby Gordon's a little bit more of a known name, so his diecast tends to hold more value. But yeah, kind of an under-detailed car, but a very nice paint scheme, and that's what I was buying it for. Real quick, I'll show you the bottom once again, just to show you. I always forget to show the bottom of the car, so there you go. Racing Champions and nothing else. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you do enjoy obscure IndyCar diecast reviews, you're in the right place. So hit that subscribe button. Also, stay tuned for more racing content. I've got some really good stuff. You're going to be surprised how I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but this is some really professional stuff I'm churning out here, so I'm hoping you guys will enjoy some of the racing content coming in the next couple of weeks. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.